Hello, class of 2022. You might feel like you're an expert at osmosis by now, or you might still feel totally overwhelmed. Either way, don't worry. I'm not going to spend this video throwing 15 more features of osmosis at you. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about best practices for using osmosis effectively as an individual and as a class. Remember that osmosis is designed to help you learn in the way that works best for you. You might find that you only want to use osmosis as pre-written flashcards and questions. Or you might find that writing and sharing cards is what is most helpful for you. You might eschew flashcards altogether and just annotate the heck out of all your self-study guides. Or you might want to cement all your knowledge by reading the corresponding pages in first aid. Regardless of how you learn best, osmosis can help you. For me, what worked really well was writing some flashcards and then having ample time to review them on a spaced repetition schedule. Unfortunately, I was doing all of the work myself. For the first two blocks, that worked out okay, but as you go through M1 year, the course load really picks up, and eventually I ran into the problem where I could barely keep up with even making cards for everything, let alone having time to do spaced repetition with them. I really wish that my class had fully embraced our group workspace, because if 10 or 15 of us had split up the work for each case, I think that would have been a particularly helpful strategy for me and for many of my fellow classmates who also benefited from the flashcards. I think a part of the reason that my class didn't embrace osmosis in this way is that we didn't learn how to use it until after orientation. So we were already totally overwhelmed and we didn't want to learn one more thing. The reason we've put all of your pre-matriculation materials on osmosis is to give you a chance to become proficient with it so that you can use it to its maximum potential to help your whole class succeed. To that end, I've set up a Google Doc sign up so that you can sign up to make some flashcards for one or more sections of your pre-matriculation materials. I strongly encourage you to make flashcards for at least one section this summer. I'm going to say it again. I strongly encourage you to make flashcards for at least one section this summer. Trying this out can only help you, and at the very least it will help you to appreciate how much work those students who end up doing it consistently throughout the year are putting in on your behalf. The link to this sign-up sheet is going to be in the description for this video, in the final slide of this presentation, and also attached to a document in the pre-matriculation materials on osmosis. So, what makes a good flashcard? There's really only one main overarching rule of thumb that can help you become a master flashcard maker, and that's keep it simple. You shouldn't have more than 3 to 5 pieces of information on your flashcard, and you shouldn't leave unnecessarily wordy explanations when you can say it more easily. Bullet points are great, and don't worry about grammar. If you're not sure if you can fit another piece of information on this card, don't be afraid to put it on the next one. Remember, many well-written cards are better than few poorly written cards. Let's look at an example. This is part of a study guide that I imagine you'll see sometime during the 2nd or 3rd week of September. This is the section about the bacteria Staph aureus, which is one of the most important bacteria you'll ever learn. So let's take a look at some flashcards based on this information. All right, so the front is general characteristics of Staph aureus, and the back reads, Staph aureus is a gram-positive cocci growing in grape-like clusters, and it's a facultative anaerobe. It's catalase positive, which is a major diagnostic difference from strep, and it's usually grown on blood agar plates, and when observed with the naked eye, it has colonies that are large, opaque, and flat. Well, it's not a terrible card. Okay, actually, yes, it's pretty terrible. What would make this flashcard better? First off, the back completely defies the keep it simple rule. Technically, there are about 7 pieces of information here, and it's written in complete sentences that are incredibly wordy. So let's try again and see if we can make this card a lot better. All right, so now the front is the same, general characteristics of Staph aureus, and the back looks like this. It has all the same information, that it's gram-positive, that it's a facultative anaerobe, that it's a cocci that grows in clusters, that it's catalase positive, that it grows on blood agar and these large, opaque, flat colonies. But it's written as briefly as possible. It's much easier to just see it at a glance and get all the important information out of it. Also, you'll notice that I bolded catalase positive because it's super important distinguishing because it is a super important distinguishing characteristic that you need to know. But I didn't add all the information about it being the main diagnostic feature that distinguishes it from strep. because this is something that you should be able to associate with the fact that it's catalase positive, and I've bolded it and put 3 exclamation points to show you, oh, hey, that's really important. It's a key thing. Now this is a very good card. The only thing that I might do to make it better is put categories on the front of what I would expect the list to look like before going to the back. So this might be a good option. So as you can see, it's the same front. It says general characteristics of Staph aureus, but then underneath it says what I'm expecting to see from your answer. And that's the gram stain, the morphology, the metabolism, the test results, and the growth medium. And then as you can see, the exact same back. Now, even someone who has never seen this card before will be able to utilize it to study effectively. This principle of keeping things simple is the key to writing good flashcards. If it means you need to make 10 flashcards to study Staph aureus, that's okay. Because if they're good cards, then the people who use them to study, including you, will be better off for your hard work. Like I said in a previous video, I usually make flashcards that are fill in the blank. I prefer these kinds of questions to the ones that have fronts and backs, and that's just kind of a personal preference of mine. Although it is important to point out that most of the pre-made cards you'll run into are also in this format, such as Zonky, Brisencephalon, and all the cards on Osmosis. One of the things that I really like about it is that you only use the front side of the card. So if you want, you can use the back side of the card to add a handy mnemonic, or add a photo that you think clarifies the point, or make a joke, or whatever. And that actually can be one of the most helpful ways that you can assist your fellow classmates. If you found something that's really catchy that sticks in your mind that helps you to remember a fact, adding it on there can make a big difference. So this year, one of my classmates was a whiz at neuroscience. She studied in college, she wants to be a neurologist. So she made a bunch of neuroscience cards that she would do as fill in the blank, and then on the back she would find pictures or diagrams that she thought helped to clarify what was going on, and she'd post them so that we could see the answer to the fill in the blank and then map it out on the diagram that she provided. And it really added an extra level of study utility to her cards. The point is, long story short, fill in the blanks leave you with a lot of options for adding additional resources and wisdom. So if you want to make fill in the blanks, here's a few style tips from my experience. Fill in the blank cards should be in the format of statements, not questions. So this example is pretty straightforward. The blank are a group of bacteria which are all catalase positive. And of the 49 species and 27 subspecies, many are coagulase positive as well. As you can see, 2 statements and one blank. And of course the answer is the Staphylococci. All right. I don't think that requires any more explanation. It just makes sense. They should be statements, not questions. Moving on. The second rule of thumb, fill in the blank cards need to be specific enough that you can figure out what the blank is supposed to say. So this green one here, blank are bacteria. That doesn't work because there's like a zillion things that are bacteria and that are not Staphylococci. So more details are necessary in order for it to be clear that this card is talking about Staphylococci. We just don't have enough information. It's way, way, way too broad. Similarly, this pink card, Staphylococci are blank bacteria that are blank and blank. You'd have to be a mind reader or a psychic or something in order to know that the correct answer are gram-positive, catalase positive, and facultative anaerobes. We just didn't have enough clues to be able to figure out what was supposed to go in each blank. So we have to do something to fix these 2 cards. They are not acceptable. Okay, here's the correction. So remember, this originally said blank are bacteria, which was not specific enough. Now it says blank are a group of gram-positive bacteria that grow in grape-like clusters and are catalase positive. Now we have enough information to correctly identify Staphylococci as the correct answer. All right, next. You'll remember that this card originally read Staphylococci are blank bacteria that are blank and blank, which would force us to read someone's mind in order to answer the question. So we still have the 3 blanks, and actually they still indicate the same things, but now we're indicating what we expect. So they're gram something and catalase something and metabolism something. So now we have enough information to say, oh, well, they're gram positive and catalase positive, and they're facultative anaerobes. And so as you can see, that is indeed what those blanks represent. So now both of these cards are specific enough and give us enough information that we can successfully fill in the blanks without having to read anybody's mind, which nobody needs to have to do. This is not mind reading school. It's medical school. All right. Third style tip. Fill in the blanks with multiple answers, and one blank should be annotated to reflect that there are multiple answers expected. So this card here, humans are the major reservoir for blank. Well, if I was just going through a list of 200 cards, I'd probably be like, oh, like 5,000 different things, but probably Staph aureus, because that's what we're talking about in this class. But the actual answer, Staph aureus, Staph epidermidis, Staph saprophyticus, Staph lugdunensis, and Staph hemolyticus. So first off, this just wasn't a specific enough card. How do I know that we were talking about members of the Staphylococcus family to begin with? Like I said, there's like a zillion things that humans are the main reservoirs for, which should terrify you, by the way, and we'll get to that later. Second of all, how was I supposed to know that there were 5 answers? So this card needs a huge makeover. So one way that you could have fixed that previous card is to just state how many answers there were. So this one says humans are the major reservoir for 5 Staphylococci species. So we included that there's Staphylococci, and we also included that there's 5 of them, which then gives us this one blank for which we expect 5 answers. So we've now understood what precise topic we're talking about and how many answers we were expecting. So this is now a good card. A second possible fix would have been to make a separate blank for each answer. So humans are the major reservoir for the following Staphylococci species, and then these 5 blanks. And notice that this card is still more detailed than the original and continues to clue us in that we're talking about Staphylococci species. Even though it doesn't say 5, it has 5 blanks. So this is now also a good card. And there are the answers, of course. Okay. Following the principle of keeping it simple, avoid doing more than 5 fill-in-the-blanks on one card. And make sure that they're all absolutely necessary. If you don't need to have a blank there, don't put it there. Also, as you'll notice, all of my fill-in-the-blank examples were either complete sentences or bullet points. If you use complete sentences, make sure you don't give away the answer with your grammar. So in this example, Staph aureus is a anaerobe, aerobe, facultative anaerobe are your 3 options. Well, it's clearly facultative anaerobe because the grammar only allows that answer to be correct. Otherwise, Staph aureus is a aerobe. It's clearly bad grammar. So it's easy to make a correction to this card. All we have to do is make it an A-and card, and then you have to actually know the answer instead of answering the card based on the grammar. That's just a little detail. Makes a big difference, although sometimes when your professors mess up and put an answer like that in there, it's a score on a test, just saying. So I could probably go on forever about what makes a good flashcard because I've written thousands of them in the past year. But I hope that these few examples have gotten you started thinking critically about good flashcards and how they help with productive studies. I really encourage you to try out flashcard writing during this summer, even if it's not a way that you think you'll learn best. It might surprise you. And I also wanted to let you know that until school starts, I'll be checking in to see what kind of flashcards people are making and commenting when I find ones that are particularly good, and also making suggestions of potential improvement when I find ones that need some work. So if you think you'd like to make flashcards but you're worried that you'll be bad at it, take this as your opportunity to hone your skills before school starts. I also wanted to remind you that all of your pre-matriculation material is stuff you'll need to know when you take your host defense and host response summative a couple of months after school starts. All of the information you're going to be learning in class will build on this incredibly important foundational material. So I encourage you to take every opportunity to really ingrain these materials in your brain. I hope making and using flashcards will help you to achieve this goal. As a reminder, please sign up to make flashcards for a section or 2. We can't actually make you do it, but we do see the people who do, and I at least really appreciate them. Not that that means anything. I'm just saying you should try it. The link is on the slide. It's also in the video description, and you can find it in your pre-matriculation study materials on September 5th in the Osmosis class workspace. So please, 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 please sign up. If you don't, I'll be sad. That's really the only thing I can say to induce you. At any rate, happy studying, and I'll see you in the next video.